the ending, very, very controversial.
How so?
Super, super. Well, that's what I've heard from a lot of people. Um, Personally, when I saw the ending, which is the last two episodes, and it is an entire psychotherapy session inside of
Hmm.
Shinji's consciousness about trying to accept his depression and go forward with it. I mean, it ends all happily,
Yeah.
where everybody's clapping for him, saying congratulations, because he finally accepts himself and accepts the depression that he has inside of him, and hopefully will grow from that and will stop feeling so depressed. Um,
Hmm.
it's a very happy ending, but also an ending that does, I think, leave a bit to want. Um, when
So.
you go into the movie End
Hmm.
of Evangelion,
Yep.
which has its own separate ending,
Hmm.
that's different from the original one, when it actually shows what happens to Nerve and how Sealy um, throws in all of their military power to destroy Nerve, and everybody
Yeah.
gets shot to death. Um, and there's a real struggle to get uh, Asuka to work or to synchronize with her Evangelion again, and Shinji to pilot his Evangelion.
Yeah.
I really did want to see that because they did set up everything with Adam and Lilith and like, Ava Unit One. That when they go, when the last two episodes come, I'm telling you, like I really dug the style um, of just all of these flashing images to
Yeah.
Shinji, and he's trying to relate it back into his mind and really
Yeah.
having a conversation, words scrolling up on the screen
We're scrolling, and
telling.
then the way the animation works is you see him somewhere at a time just as a storyboard, and then out of nowhere it's just him in figureless form, just making these weird shapes, and he's just like, who am I, what is this? This is you when you're not original, and this is what it's like when we're a collective conscious, or we're all one. There's no individuality, it's just one big cluster that's constantly moving and not having a beginning or an end to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then as the animation goes on in the second episode of the psychotherapy section, and all of the color gets stripped away, and even the lines get stripped away, and he's just a husk of himself. It just looks like it's moving paper in the background and just his
Yeah.
moving shape. And when they try and define lines, they always get broken because
Hmm.
it's in turn stripping away his own layers that he's built up around his depression, to
Yeah.
reveal and to accept that he does have it, and he needs to get through it. I really really did dig that. I
Yeah.
liked that. I thought it was great, but was it great for an ending?
Uh,
I can't
honestly,
like full-heartedly agree with that.
no, I get what you're seeing. Again, like this is what makes Evangelion so great and like so known, at least for like people in the anime community and like who are into film stuff. It's that ending, it's that controversial ending, and the way it ends. I think. Hold up. I think the way end of Ava ended, just leaving some questions unmarked. With just Asuka and Shinji just laying there. Asuka, Shinji strangling her, seeing if he's alive or seeing if what she will do, and just her like caressing him, showing him love, and then out of nowhere she's just like saying disgusting because she knows what he did while she was unconscious, and just that thought and that ending, just leaving those question marks. Well, what's gonna happen now? How is this gonna play out? Are they is everybody back to normal, or are they still a collective mind? Are those two the only ones left? Who knows? And it's just things like that that leaves. I feel like it's sort of the uneasiness, the way it leaves uneasiness and like still questions left unanswered that really makes it controversial, and why not a lot of people agree with the ending.
See, I think the end of Evangelion,
Yeah.
that ending,
Hmm.
I really did enjoy a lot more than I did enjoy the ending of the series, because it did answer a lot of questions, but did leave a few questions to be desired, which I like. I like being able to sort of interpret what's going to happen next, or question, what's going to happen next, while still being satisfied that there are brackets on this story and I could follow it from start to end and feel satisfied about um, about the story that I've gone through. Well, I think in the series when it ends with the psychotherapy section,
Hmm.
there's just so many unanswered questions that I feel that there's no bracket at the end. I feel like there is more to it than anything.
But yeah, again, it's just, and it's also just left up to interpret of the interpretation of the watcher as well, because there's a lot of things that people might interpret wrong or interpret differently than what our interpretations and what we've seen and what we've done research on. But it's just something. It's just a good show to watch and ponder, and really to just to get to know and get to really not understand, but really get a glimpse into what some people think, or like some people who you probably might know, or some people who thought might think in that sort of way, who might have had those same thoughts and similar, and being able to relate to that. So it's just overall a great show, in what storyline, aesthetics, psychology, the depthness of it, and the way I personally love it because of all the biblical allusions they make. Adam, Eve, Lilith, Project 666, Sealy, Nerve, the angels, and things like that. It's something that I really enjoyed. But again, it's an amazing show. 9.5 out of 10. And Jacob, with the thought of the ending concluded, what's your final rating?
Um, it's hard. It's hard. I'd give the show 9 out of 10. I
And
give
the
the show a
movie?
9 out of 10. The movie, I think I'd also give it a 9 out of 10.
Good.
It's just I really think that there could have been a way to meld both of those endings together during the show's run, so that I
Hmm.
could still see how Nerve ended, while also getting that psychotherapy session with Shinji.
Yeah.
Because I remember I watched a video and a guy made the point, because he loved the ending of the
Yeah.
original show, and he made the point that it was the perfect ending, and that everything else that was built around it was really just set dressing. And I really think that it wasn't set dressing. That the angels and the Evangelions and Adam and Nerve is such an integral part to the story that it really couldn't happen
Yeah.
um, without those components. That you do need to tie those in together. I need to see an ending to them as much as I need to see an ending to Shinji,
Hmm.
and that session that he has inside of his mind of acceptance. You know, I
No, it's perfectly understandable. And again, it's just something that's left up the to who watches it to interpret. Because yeah, you have that uneasy feeling of the ending. And honestly, me after watching like a couple of research and doing like research on it, I kind of agree that it was a good ending for the show. But again, nine, I rate it 9.5 out of 10. You rate it 9.9 out of 10. And there's still more movies and more stuff like that, because you still have Truth Squared, you still have Ava 1.0, you still have Ava 2.0, 3.0, and then 3.0 plus 1.0, which is just 4.0, Twice Upon a Time coming out sometime later this year. But it's just more to keep up, and it just adds more, thought process, and more like really thinking and really getting into the series. But that is Neon Genesis Evangelion. If you guys who are hearing this or will hear this are interested, it's on Netflix. Just remember, if if you want like true authentic feeling, I would recommend watching the sub, because the dub actors really, in my personal opinion, when I heard a couple of snippets and like heard the dub voice acting, it was just terrible. I really did not like it. It was just like a one take effort sort of thing. So if you want like true emotion, want to hear that true emotion, and really analyze the show, I suggest watching the sub. But yeah, and now on to the next movie, Internal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
I have to say before you say anything, this is
Mhm.
my favorite romance movie, and I can already give the rating, which is 10 out of 10. It's a 10 out of 10 movie.
Well, I mean, I'll give my own rating after like my thought process of it, because to be completely honest with you, I saw a lot of myself in that movie,
Hmm.
especially the relationship part, and my only relationship that I had. I really saw a lot of what they talked about play out in the movie, and it just really got me thinking. It was more like food for thought after I saw this movie. Just thinking like I really did act like this, and it was just sort of like a sombering moment, like a serious thing, being able to see yourself depicted onto another person, and just Jim Carrey's job in the film is just absolutely amazing. The way he, in the beginning of the movie, the way he sounds depressed, just the tone of his voice, just the utterance of his words, sometimes the stuttering. It's just explains just how perfectly depressed is. His mindset, the way he didn't shave, is the way his anger shows. It's just amazing, and I really enjoyed the movie, especially the thought process about it. Like, I was watching a video on this earlier about what basically goes on psychologically wise is either flexibility or plasticity or elasticity. Is whether we can do the flexible thing and, in this case in the movie, erase people or events that hurt us from our minds and live on our life as if we never knew them, or plasticity or elasticity, in which using those experiences to form ourselves and, to better ourselves and move forward with them, which is something that I really found. That was my first thought process. I'm like, dude, just get over it. You don't need to go erase your mind. But the more I saw, the more psychologically inept that I started to become and start to see, and especially the aesthetics wise, the film directing, it was an absolute beauty. The way the uncertainties change, the scenery change. The house coming down at the beach, the way in Barnes and Nobles, all the books weren't seam side face forward. It was all the opposite. The pages facing forward. It was just subtle nuances like that. You could really tell the depth and like psychological part of somebody's mind and somebody's thought process. And I just thought it was a really good movie. I Mark Ruffalo's performance, I really loved him. Jim Carrey as well, as I said. The Hobbit, honestly, I hated him. Just trying
Elijah Wood.
Elijah Wood. I feel like, and also part of it, like from what I saw, was the difference between true, authentic, and fake love. Because if you see, Jim Carrey went through all this trouble of trying to keep this girl, not erased from her mind, and even back then, the authentic love, he knew to go to Montauk and see and meet her again without him even knowing. While Elijah Wood's part was just reading off of some paper, off of some script, being falsified and just having a general idea of what he thought love was. So it's just really interesting to see that contrast of authentic and fake, and the way they really treat the patient and the undoing, and just like sort of like the capitalist vibe to it, not the capitalist vibe, but the way they talk about what capitalism has to do with it, the way Mark Ruffalo and his girlfriend, the way they treat Joel's apartment as if it were some kind of personal Airbnb, and just how they're just like thriving and having fun off of Joel's suffering, off of Joel's things that aren't even theirs. So it's just something interesting to see, and just something. There's just the messages that were within the movie that really, at least for me, hit deep, hit home, and it was just an amazing movie. I really enjoyed it. I really loved it.
Be prepared for an hour of me talking,
No,
because I'm really in love with this movie ever since the first time I saw it, or even just saw clips of it. Because it is just about Joel Barish or something.
mm-hmm.
I forget. I
No,
forget his full name. Barish, yes.
Bearish.
Joel Barish. His girlfriend recently erasing his mind and finding it out, and then him erasing his mind, and you just follow that entire story through, as well as like a B story of everybody else around him erasing his mind and how they contribute to each other.
Mm-hmm.
What I think is one of the most amazing and subtle things that the movie does is it starts from the most painful memories that he's had, and
To the
works
most.
its way down to the most fond memories that he's ever had
Yeah.
of Kate Winslet's character.
Mm-hmm.
From the last time that they met, or from last time they saw each other to the first time
Which
they
time?
met. And what I thought was really amazing is Michel Gondry, who directed the film. He did the subtle thing to be able to have the audience know what time period they were in based
Mhm.
off of Kate Winslet's hair color.
Yeah,
Um, you know, when
that was a really good job. The
exactly, yeah, when the relationship is falling apart, she has orange hair color. When the relationship is good, she has red. When they first met, it was green, and then after they erased her memory, it's
it's
blue.
blue.
You know,
Yeah.
and that way you can tell, okay, this is what I know, and or that I know where I'm exactly at this moment just because of her hair color. And also, if there's this little thing in the beginning, because almost the entire movie takes place in his mind.
Mhm.
Everything after in the beginning, when they first meet each other again in Montauk, um,
Mhm.
and Joel Barris drives her to her apartment for them to go back into his house. When they
Yeah.
cut to the credits or yeah, to some of the credits, and then cut back to Joel, as you're going, everything after that is just him deleting memories.
Yeah.
There'll be moments where you hear the dink of
Mhm.
when a memory is successfully deleted, and that's when it cuts to the next one. I thought that was
Yeah.
so smart because I didn't see that my first time watching it, but my second time watching it, I was like, oh, now I understand. Now I get these beats. And this is how it happens. It's a subtle thing that when you watch it again, you feel really rewarded about it.
Yeah.
Really early on too, and
And it
and
just
see,
adds to the authenticity of the movie and the authenticity
yeah,
of of the situation that's going on.
yeah, it really does. And and it has amazing transitions. Like I can't talk enough about the transitions from when Joel finds out that or is totally confused by Kate Winslet's actions of finding a new boyfriend, looking at him like she doesn't know him. He walks out of the Barnes and Noble where she works and into his friend's apartment while everything in the background starts closing down or
Yeah.
starts cutting to black as the lights, shut off. I don't know how they did that because it looks like a continuous shot, but
Yeah.
it's not. I don't, and I haven't seen anything where somebody's asked that question because I really want to know how they did that because it's an amazing shot.
Yeah.
Or it's
It really
amazing
is.
transition. And then as the memories start going on and it'll be in their apartments and the furniture will start moving around and they'll start jumping around into different set pieces and it'll play kind of like a goofy little movie for like a split second, but you're back into the seriousness of it. You're back into the problems that these two people had. These little actions that kept on building and building and building until they finally
Until
broke up,
eventually erupted. Yeah.
and until eventually everything erupts. And that's a real relationship. I think this movie really does speak to everyone that's had a past relationship that has ended really
Bad.
badly.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
agree.
and how at one point you do wish you can erase those memories and you really don't want them around, but you have to keep them and able to grow. And the movie is all about that, deleting your memories and realizing that you don't want to do that because even in the roughest relationships there's always been golden times that
Yeah.
you just want to keep on forever. I One of the most emotional scenes for me is when he's hugging Kate Winslet's character under the sheets, and she's talking about how she thought she was ugly when she
Wait.
was really young.
And she just disappears out of nowhere. She just like
Yeah, she gets
slips from
pulled
the
away.
sheets. Yeah.
She
That
slips
was
from
really.
the sheets. He's crawling towards her, and he's saying, "Please, please, I just want to keep this one. Just let me hold on to this one."
Yeah.
Um, it's really, really powerful, and this whole idea came to be about after the writer Charlie Kaufman. Um, he had seen a lot of Hollywood movies and a lot of Hollywood romances. And when he got into relationships, he thought it would be like a Hollywood romance where their differences would make them work together better.
But
But
that's
he
not the
realizes that
case.
that's not the case. Yeah, it's definitely not the case. Not the case at all, many, many times. A lot of the times the differences really can break the relationship um, if they don't complement each other.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's why he saw it as really damaging and he wanted to write something so to show people what real relationships are really about and the consequences of them. All of your little actions that you say. I mean, you see when you go through the bad memories, you hear every a bit of Joel's little sayings to Kate Winslet's
And so,
character,
yeah.
and it you feel like, wow, you really did make a mistake at this time, because everything is being recited while Joel is figuring out that he's in this world. He's still in his subconscious.
Yeah, and I also like the foreshadowing that comes with the movie as well. Like when she's talking about her name, like, "Oh, don't make fun of my name." He's just like, "Oh my oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling, my time, don't you leave me, don't you leave," and stuff like that. And it was really just really cool foreshadowing and being able to see like, oh, this is what he meant. This is what the song meant by, at least in his case, his Clementine, banishing his memories. And the reason, at least the movie really did speak to me, just the relationship part of part of it. But what really got me thinking was, in all honesty, like even at the heat of like the breakup and at the end of the relationship, I honestly wouldn't have wiped my memories because it's just something that, at least for me, was deeply cherished. Like, although honestly, I'll be completely honest, I sometimes acted like a bad boyfriend. I honestly constantly think to myself I was sort of a bad boyfriend. I did have some things that were bad and more damaging,
Mm.
and just to really see this movie and reflect, like, if I were to go back through my memories and see like where all my screw ups were, I wouldn't want to delete those because then how would I learn and how would I grow as a person in general? And also just thinking, although it may have ended badly, there's still some good with that, and it's what makes you human. It's what makes you you. Your experience shape who you are and who you will become. So like when he thought about like erasing his mind, I just thought it was just like, pfft, why do that? But just the ability for the director to really convey what's going on in the mind of somebody who's losing their most cherished memories was did do a really good job. It was just absolutely capturing the emotions, the way towards the end of the movie where he's driving in the car with his friends, the way you see as the car speeds up, you see just the bookshelves and the sand and everything mixed together in a culmination of what all the memories were, all the places, locations in his mind were, just to see utterly disappear out of nowhere. So it was just a really amazing movie. I really enjoyed the cinematography of it. Just the scenes, just how abstract they were. The
Oh,
eyes, the way you could see the faces erasing, the memories bit by bit degrading itself into nothingness.
it's so smart that way, and a lot of it is looks like it's handheld,
Yeah,
which I think adds to the authenticity of the movie, because you really do feel like it's personal. It's one of those great handheld um, sort of movies that you see. Nothing is static. It's all moving. It's all
yeah.
moving to the end, and that's the whole thing. The movie, of course, in itself is going to end at one point, but also it uses that structure in order to build onto its story of endings to everything. You know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just a really amazing movie. I really enjoyed the film. I'm kind of glad you recommended it to me and I saw it. 'Cause it just spoke, honestly, it just spoke 1,000 words, even more than 1,000 words to me. And just something that if you watch, people can relate to. It may not be easily, some people may be easier, it may be easier to relate to others. But yeah, it was just really good. And then also going back to like the album recommendation, like I look back at it now and like all those songs would have perfectly fit into the soundtrack of that movie just because the way the memories go from like horrific to like the most fondest, the same way Finucci's Pizza for like the most rock and like screamo song in the beginning of all the toppings to like the last fondest memory of just that acoustic and those vocals would have really hit home with that movie. And it was just a good movie overall. I really enjoyed it. For me, it's a 9 out of 10. It really is a 9 out of 10. And now, on to the next movie. There Will Be Blood. What did you think about that movie? You're muted.
Muted?
Yeah, you were muted.
What? How am I muted?
I don't know.
But you can still hear me.
No, you were
What?
muted. I unmuted you.
Damn.
Yeah.
Technical difficulties.
So next is There Will Be Blood. What did you think about that movie?
You know what? I thought that there would be blood. There would be a lot of
Black
blood.
blood. Black blood.
I love the black blood. The blood of the earth. So There Will Be Blood is all about a gold miner who strikes it rich with oil and takes advantage or gets a hint at this little town by a man named Paul Sunday
Mhm.
that there's a huge oil field underneath there. And so he goes to the town, he takes advantage of them, and he gets into trouble. Um, First thing I have to say about it is Daniel Day-Lewis, who is the main protagonist of the film.
Mhm.
I think that has to be probably the best performance I've ever seen out of Daniel Day-Lewis. I mean,
Really?
because I feel every bit of hatred that he harbors for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, there is this point in the movie where he has a monologue with his fake brother, his fake
Mhm.
non-legitimate brother, about how much he has harbored and built up hatred for every single
Everybody.
person.
Yeah.
How every time he sees a person, he can't stop but look at all the parts he dislikes about them and how much he hates them for that. There's not a single person that he liked, except maybe for his fake brother, because he never talked about him and like
Yeah.
hating on him. So when you have that entire monologue about him saying all of that, you are instantly encapsulated by his entire performance, and I believe
Yeah.
every single second of it. And uh, it's a roller coaster because
No, yeah, it is.
in the beginning, you know, you feel the first 10 minutes of the film, I feel, is shot like a horror movie with
Mm.
the sun, you know, casting shadows over the hills and how he's down in the mine, trying to get gold, and then when he finally does, he holds onto it like like he's holding on to it for dear life, and
Yeah.
he can't let go of it because that's his heart and soul. That's what's going to get him through everything. Um, you know, that's what's going to get him opportunities. And then he breaks his leg. He hits
I
his
know.
head,
That
and I
scene was
mean,
so gruesome.
you know, like they don't show too much of it, but just the Foley sound effects that they added were just so honest, and like you really
Yeah.
felt that. And you know, Daniel Day Lewis really portrayed that he was hurting in the beginning, and he kept on hurting as he went on with his oil business after getting some gold to hire new hands and
Yeah.
get a drill to mine out oil where he thought there would be oil.
Yeah.
And then when the baby's father,
Dies.
who works for him, dies, you know, that was gruesome. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it just that like 2 frames of blood spewing out from his head. That's all I needed to see to really feel the impact of him. And then
Yeah.
just Daniel Day Lewis huddling in the corner and looking back at him. It's totally unfeeling about,
Mm-hmm.
you know, a father dying and leaving his unborn son. Or
Oh
not his
wow.
unborn son, his son left onto the camp. And just the next scene of him covered in oil looking at the baby, and the baby just knows, he just cries, and he just tries to put down like alcohol,
Whiskey.
yeah,
Down the
whiskey
Easter.
into his little thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that was kind of funny, but then I kind of really looked at it because throughout the movie he does it where he puts whiskey into milk, so that he can drink it. Where he's trying to turn the boy into himself,
Mm.
you know. he is shown to drink a lot of whiskey. I
Yeah.
feel like he's an alcoholic. Um, he's trying to make the kid into himself, but when he knows that it's not his son, and
Hmm.
that he was just using him, he was trying to get some feeling out of it, but he couldn't. He just could hate him. And that's all
Yeah.
it is. And then the whole idea of Daniel Day Lewis's character, when he strikes the rich, when he takes advantage of everything in his possession, when he takes advantage of the kid, into
Hmm.
turning his face into a family man's face, into being able, into getting the tip about the Sunday Ranch and
Yeah.
getting all of the gold. And when he tells his son, "We're giving them quail prices. We're not going to give them oil prices,"
Paralysis.
you know,
Yeah.
taking a bit. I mean, when you see a man taking advantage of his of any opportunity that's given to him, he's usually seen as a good man. He's usually,
Hmm.
like a strong man. But when you see it in this film, you see the sort of deconstruction of that man, where no, he's not a good man. He's not someone you really want to care about. He's not
It's somebody
someone.
you don't want to trust either.
Yeah, it's somebody that you really don't want to trust, and that's what Eli Sunday, who is the priest of
Hmm.
the town, sees instantly, and Eli Sunday, even he who is supposed to
Let's see.
be this all, not all knowing, but all good character, the priest,
Yeah. Hmm.
you see the dark side of him. He beats his
Hmm.
own father,
Yeah.
and then he beats what, his sister, for
Yeah.
not praying, you know,
I think
um
his dad.
Oh yeah, his dad beats his sister for
Yeah.
not praying, but I'm sure it's out of a fear from Eli.
Yeah.
So, all everybody in the world is sort of bad. The only like good character you kind of see and you can
Yes.
sympathize with is the son.
Yeah. I honestly agree, and just the after, you even see Daniel Day Lewis's character harvest even more hate for his illegitimate son, because when he goes deaf, when the oil explodes, when they hit it good, and there's an explosion because of the pressure from the oil, comes up, it leaves the kid deaf, and that hate just harbors even more because Daniel Day Lewis is thinking, now I have to spend more attention, I have to give him special attention for him to to be able to survive instead of him just living out on his own, and I don't honestly see you kind of see the love and hate relationship that Daniel Day Lewis has with the son, his adopted son, because when he sends him away, he feels bad, like he feels some sort of remorse for it. But then when he comes back and he takes back after, there's some sort of genuine joy in him, even though maybe a little bit, it's joy and it's genuine, but it just regresses back to hate, and especially when he goes deaf. So it's just something. It's just like you said, a roller coaster to see somebody to go between his emotions, but mainly stay stably in the realm of hate and the realm of disliking people for what they are. Like an example being when that one guy from the other oil company said, started talking about like his son and giving him up for adoption, or no, or like putting him in an orphanage. He got really mad about that, and that's something that he began to dislike even more. But at the same time, how can he be mad about that and dislike the other person for mentioning out the truth, like the actual faults? And he gets violent to an extent to where his hatred turns into like physical violence towards the end of the movie as well. But it's sort of in the middle of the movie when they're offering him prices for the oil field, he gets violent and says like, "I'm gonna go murder your family. Like I'm gonna cut your throat with a knife," and violent things like that, irrational, violent things out of hatred that you really see intensify towards the end.
Yeah, no, when he definitely starts losing control of who of the person that he was, trying to stay stable, trying to stay in the realm of hatred, but having a professional outlook. When he makes it, he doesn't care anymore. And,
Yeah.
and even before that, you start to see the seeds grow. And I think it all starts when he finds out that his supposed brother is not his
Fake.
brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, where the only person that he harbored any sort of genuine like to, and it was a small amount, and finding out that that person lied to him, it just brings him down and
Yeah.
further and further into the path of hatred and not trusting anyone anymore. And he starts reverting back to doing everything himself and alone, because that's all who he could trust. And then hating even more, because of that incident,
Yeah.
'cause he couldn't accept it. That's the first time I think he killed someone.
Hmm.
You know, and he also gets into the drive of his work. You go into the movie and it really is all about his work.
Work.
when
Yeah.
his when his son, or yeah, his son, goes deaf during the explosion of the oil drill, he puts him down, and the son is really trying to beg for him, stay with me, I can't hear, please stay with me, and protect me during this time. He lets him go. He leaves, and that's
Hmm.
his choice to leave and to be able to control the mill, being happy that they're in a field of oil, a whole ocean of it, but still, um just going to work, and that being nothing that he focuses that being the only thing he focuses on. Also, I'd like to say how beautiful that shot is, because
Hmm.
it's a really old oil mill or oil drill that goes all the way up, like 20
Yeah.
feet high, and it's all burning down in the middle of the night, and it's like super dark all around it, and everybody's running around. I'm telling you, the amount of extras that had to be in that shot had to be astounding. you know
Yeah.
Everybody were running around, and all of that fire piling high, just like a huge beacon. I loved every single second of that. And then there's a lot of symmetry to it too, where
Hmm.
especially when Daniel Day Lewis is in his little office space, when they're first beginning. There's three windows, and you'll always see a person come from the right and enter one of the windows, or stay in one of the windows, and talk to who Daniel Day Lewis, who's usually on the furthest left from
So,
him.
yeah.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful cinematography that I can appreciate so very very much.
Yeah, and honestly, because I saw it, honestly, I didn't even see it in Netflix. I saw it on El Rey, and
Hmm.
it was because it was just a subtle movie. Like me and my dad didn't know what was going on, so like when the movie started, we just saw see, and I really enjoy the way the film it's able to convey a story, and you already know what's happening without any words in the beginning. Like when he's mining for the gold and he finds it, you see his struggle. He makes absolutely he doesn't say any monologue at all, even to when he's with his broken leg at the refiners, cashing in the silver and gold.
Mm.
There's no words between it. It's just noises, just the noises of him hurting his head, breaking his leg, the noises of him grunting through the pain of escaping and making it to that refinery. Getting that gold, the sound of the fire, of the fans working to refine all that mineral that he mined out. So I just really enjoyed how some parts of the movie was really able to convey the story in its totality without having to say anything at all.
Yeah, no, I mean the first 10 minutes of that film, all of the story is told without any dialogue, and I thought that was amazing. It goes
Yeah.
again like to the silence thing, where I love it when a film or any media, that's a visual media that takes its time to be able to be silent and let its audience sort of look around the picture, and
Hmm.
just really be enveloped and take in everything, because it's one thing to look at a scene and think it's amazing, and it's one thing to be enveloped by a scene, and that's
Yeah.
usually taken by a lot of silence that you have to do,
Well,
and you have to be smart about it too. That's what a lot
mhm.
of these
Yeah,
movies
and
do. They're
it's
smart
also
about it.
time within the movie as well because what it seemed like that, like going back to like Evangelion things like that, it was like a solid 53 seconds, almost a solid minute. And to
Mm.
think that not a lot of things have that, like they'll usually have like a 25-second thing, but in order to have like a full minute and really give the audience time to like envelop themselves and really contemplate and think about that scene or the scene they're watching, it's just something that's really not seen nowadays and something that really is admired when it does happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. But other than that, I really enjoyed the recommendations you made. They were really good. Again, if you guys want to watch it, it's on Netflix. There Will Be Blood.
There will
but
be blood. There will be a
and
lot of
it's
blood.
and we honestly we probably should have said spoilers ahead, but I feel like
Honestly,
we should have.
but there's a lot of things we haven't covered
No.
in these sort of talks. Like we could go into a lot more of the present day plot of Eternal Sunshine, and there's the whole priest scene at the end with Daniel Day Lewis for
Mm-hmm.
what is it?
God, God,
For There Will Be Blood.
yeah, yeah. That
Um,
see that scene was probably, I feel like I wouldn't say the climax, but it really showed how the hatred had gotten to him to the extent where he killed the priest, but to that such an extent, almost brutal, brutish sort of extent.
yeah, I mean,
And
he humiliates the priest beforehand too. He
yeah,
says he makes him say that God is a superstition
that he's a false
and that
prophet.
he's a false prophet, and that really does hurt him. And
Yeah.
but that's so it feeds into his anger. You know, he finally has control over everyone, and then to reveal that, you know, because he did it for money for the church,
Mm-hmm.
and to reveal that you know, the only property that he had not claimed in his entire buying, um,
Was the
he
property next to
sucked.
the Sunday. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
property next
inadvertently
to the sun.
sucked it up.
Yeah, he sucked up all of the oil underneath it when the priest thought he was being smart, and then just smashing his scorn with a bowling ball, and
Yeah.
and also like pushing away his child and finally revealing to him that, you know, he was just used as a face to help him, and that he wasn't even his own son. He wasn't a bastard. You know, he was an orphan. He was a bastard's bastard. Um, which is crazy, and to see that hatred grow, especially when his son talks about how he wants to start his own oil company, um, and Daniel Day Lewis takes it as competition when
Yeah.
it really shouldn't be. It's his son.
It's more of of his son, or at least his adopted
Yeah.
son, being independent rather than competition. And you just see not only the hatred, but you see the greed that gets to Daniel Day Lewis, because as you see him, he gets hungry for more and more, to the point where
Mm,
he's just like, dude, imagine if we set up this entire coastline, this entire pipeline from here all the way to San Francisco, and just the money that we'll make. And then you see in the later years, once his son grew up and got married in 27 was the time almost, no, 1917. That was before the Great Depression. How you
mm,
saw like the mansion he lived in, the way he went from, this little tiny drill with just like a shack to this huge oil pipeline with like a moderate like homes and tents and things like that, to this huge mansion, just filled with things and stuff like that. And you just really see his greed envelop and his greed really get to an extent where it's bad for him, and greed mixed with hate is just a terrible combination to have. So it was just a really good depiction of the movie, to see, transition from beginning, middle, to at the height of everything, at the climax of everything.
mm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
again,
It,
honestly, how do you rate the movie?
how do I rate the movie? I
Yes.
really think, especially with the ending. Also, I'd like to point out this one little small thing, where as the movie goes on, Daniel Day Lewis's posture slowly gets more and more crooked, and
Mm-hmm.
he starts to slump over more and more and more as like the hatred and the greed is taking over him. I thought it was a
Mm-hmm.
really nice subtle thing that I noticed.
Yeah.
But this movie, I think, is a most fantastic movie, and it's a 10 out of 10.
A 10
It's
out
a
of 10.
10 out of 10.
First 10 out of 10 in the history of this podcast.
The first, well, no, the first 10 out of 10 was Spotless, Eternal
Spotless.
Sunshine. I, you know, I think it's gonna take a
Sorry.
lot for you to give a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, especially since I'm not really, or at least wasn't never really the movie or like film type sort of thing. Just like I would watch, and until recently, like I would watch, or not recently, but like back then, I would just watch movies just to watch them. Just the excitement factor, just to see things like that, and not really focus on, character development And I really didn't start learning about character development and things like that. So like I started watching anime, like taking anime seriously.
Yeah.
So like when you see those things in movies and stuff like that, it just kind of widens your mind. Just like you see why this is an art, why this is important, why people consider this like high regard. Like when I started watching Neon Genesis Evangelion, Shinji didn't go through the typical hero's journey. He stayed a pretty stagnant hero until the point he hit his lowest point. Instead of
Mm,
going up and being the greatest he could be, he went below that, and it was more of a stagnant hero. When he would get praise and when he would try to elevate himself, he was just put back down, and he came back even, and he went back down lower and lower and lower, which I honestly thought that was kind of funny and more real to an extent, because a
mm,
lot of people, or at least a lot of people, when they try to get over things, sometimes addiction or things like that, or depression, usually when they overcome an obstacle,
mm.
there's another obstacle just 10 times harder than that, and they tend to go back down. And it really takes, at least for me, it really takes more than human effort. It takes divine, you know uh, takes divine thought and human effort to really achieve and really escape something like that, like depression or like drug addiction. And it's just really good to see how it's just things that you wouldn't that normally a person wouldn't pay attention to.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was really great. That's why I really thought this was a good idea. This book, just expanding, changing the ways you watch and listen to things. Because we usually go on our days, or just mostly typically people listen to music just to listen to it, just to keep something going on in their mind. Even though it'll come in one year and out the other, they'll still remember it all, but they'll never really remember the details of it, the importance of it, the message that the artist is trying to convey. And I really think that's important to understand when you really want to get into something, you're really watching or listening to any sort of media.
No, yeah, it's definitely really important, especially when you really care about it. Because I'm a big film guy.
Yeah,
Anybody who talks to me, I could tell you, like, I mean, as much as we've talked today about all of these movies, I can guarantee you that I have facts that go beyond just the movies.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I'll beyond the movies and the shows, and I have tons and tons of facts about that.
No, yeah.
You know
And
that,
it's same thing with me in anime and with music as well.
yeah.
Continue.
For me, it's a lesser extent to music, but for movies, it is a whole new ballgame.
Hmm.
But that's just when you're really passionate and you really do want to get the director's or the artist's vision, and you really want to understand it. That's what media does to you. That's what movies, that's what music does to you, where it makes you, it opens your minds to your eyes to things that you really didn't think about before. Uh,
Yeah.
and and that's what really smart artists, whether director or a music or guitarist, music artist, yeah, any sort of person who contributes to the media, if they're really smart, they'll do that to you.
Yeah.
And if you're really passionate about it, I think you will try and get some more understanding and try and delve more into what you love. For every movie that I love, for every movie that I give 10 out of 10s, I know a lot about them, especially about the production and everything else that from concept to finish and to even
Yeah.
afterward.
And I feel like that's why I thought this podcast was a good idea, because we're at least I've even though you start taking film from early on and you really got into it, you really found it as a passion. And me, during recently, I started taking anime and watching it seriously, and really noticing things like that.
Mm,
Really, when I came into college, when I started my fall semester, was when I really started taking things like that seriously. Well, not seriously, but paying more attention to it, and focusing on it more. So
mm,
yeah, it's just a good idea and just overall good thing to do. Exercise the mind, constantly think, because we honestly learn things about like psych or like history, but we never really get to apply it till we see movies. And for me, Evangelion, I didn't notice like there was psych things until I remembered afterwards when I rewatched it. That's when, like,
mm.
oh, that's what they meant by that. The Freudian terms here, the introspection. and things like that you don't notice on the first run, and that as soon as you start getting into something, you automatically start to notice it. Like when I watched Eternal Sunshine and listened to those songs, like that's something I instantly got into because for everything that you listen to and that you watch, there's a message to it. But whether you uncover what the message is something completely different.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
No.
again,
Yeah.
this
It,
was a good idea. I really enjoyed. It's currently 12:22 of May
it's
3rd. But yeah, dude, it's really amazing on how we can talk about these things and really talk to other people as well. Leave this to other people to hear and see as well, because then they'll hear about these things and they'll give it a listen, they'll give it a watch, and then their opinions and their thoughts and their process and their ideas of everything that we talked about will just grow and expand and really broaden horizons and broaden us to new things we never thought we'd listen to or watch.
mm,
And
yeah. Um,
yeah, that's what I really enjoyed about this. I really enjoyed time talking with you, my son. It's been a long time since we've talked like this. A
it has
long
been
time.
very, very long time.
But I enjoy it. I will always enjoy these talks with you.
Me too.
And
Me
it's
too.
just amazing. Uh, Here we are towards the end of the podcast. Any last messages? Any last things on your mind, Jacob?
Any last things on my mind? Eternal
Yes.
Sunshine is the best romance movie that has ever been committed to screen. There Will Be Blood is a fantastic deconstruction of stereotypical masculinity and is also a great secret western. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Evangelion is a mindfuck, and Good Will Hunting has to be one of the most honest films that I've ever seen. Uh, and that is a fact. These are all facts.
Oh yeah,
Just,
it's amazing.
just to just to sum up just my thoughts on all of them.
That's amazing. But that's again, Evangelion. Love it. Pulled it to a smart heart just because it was something I really took seriously. I began to take seriously. Eternal Sunshine, the Spotless Mind. I really loved the authenticity of it, the depth in it, and the relatableness to it. There will be for me, it's a Good Will Hunting, again, honest movie. There will be blood. It was a fantastic movie of just scenery, acting, and everything. Panucci's Pizza, great underground band. I'll probably be listening to more, listen to some other albums. And with this, we'll probably leave next week's, well, 2 weeks from now. No, I feel like 3 weeks from now, because it's going to
When
be
we
one part every week. One part every week.
when we
So,
do this again,
yeah. So from now on, should we talk? Should we give each other the recommendations we want for each other for after the said 2 parts are posted for this?
we'll give it to them after we end the podcast.
Okay. So like, we'll end here, and then when we start the other podcast is when we talk about what we chose to review.
Yes.
Okay, that sounds good. All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm gonna hit stop recording. Hopefully everything holds true, and I'll send those to you immediately. Again, thank you so much for having the time. This was the Father Son Podcast, Jacob Fernandez, Jose Garcia,
You.
and yeah, thank you so much for your guys' time listening, and have a good one. Thank you, Jacob. Hello, everyone. I just wanted to chime in here at the very end of the podcast. I'm Jacob, one of the co-hosts of the Father and Son podcast. I am the son, but you already knew that. So I just wanted to sort of talk about how the podcast is going to change just a little bit as we sort of get out of this first podcast recording that we've done. As you can see, we cut everything into 2 parts. So
part 1 and part 2, the beginning and the end of the podcast, because it was 2 hours, and we realized that was a really long time, so we wanted to cut it into 2, unless other people like 2 hours. So, I mean, the majority wins, of course. But we're still trying to figure out this podcast. Again, this is our first sort of venture into this, so we're gonna be changing things up. And one of the big changes we're gonna do is next week you're gonna get a podcast. We're gonna keep with the weekly uploads. You're getting one every Friday, which should be good. But the change that's happening is that we're only going to have one movie each or one show each, because we realized after recording our first session, we had a lot more to say about Evangelion, about Eternal Sunshine, and Good Will Hunting. Even There Will Be Blood, which I basically just named everyone that we used. So, yeah. Sorry about that, recording this at 2 a.m. But, so the reason why we're cutting down from 2 to 1 each is just because we want to talk more about everything that we know about these movies, because we are really, really passionate about it. That's why Evangelion was about an hour long of us talking, because we were really passionate about that project or that show, and OCL especially. So we want to be able to sort of develop that time for us to talk about the films and the shows that we've watched, or now it's the one. It also makes it easier for us every week to sort of make sure that we've watched everything and really analyzed it, because every week is kind of hard to make sometimes, even though we're going into summer, so that should be an easier time, hopefully. But again, just wanted to sort of share our thoughts. Still figuring things out. Remember, one movie or one show for each of us, so there's only going to be two visual mediums that we're going to be talking about during the podcast now, but you're going to hear a lot more, and we're going to go a lot more in depth with both of them, which should be very, very good. Hopefully you guys enjoy that, and we're keeping the music section at the beginning. It might be a little longer because we might want to talk about it longer. That's it just depends on how the recording goes, really, because we like to keep these things natural. But yeah, that's all I kind of wanted to say. We're still figuring this out, so any feedback is really appreciative. I know editing, it's pretty easy, but I want to be able to do some other different things. So whenever I try to do that, I'd like some feedback in the comments. All right, but don't want to take any more of your time. You guys are awesome. Thank you for coming to the first part, and thank you for coming for the second part and sticking all the way through. Really enjoy that. Thank you very much. Bye. Have a great quarantine.